New York City's dining scene is, well, it's facing an extinction-level event. And the asteroid is coming directly from City Hall.
Yeah, it's an asteroid made of policy, really, not rock.
Right. Welcome to the Deep Dive. It's Wednesday, February 25, 2026. And if you've looked at a restaurant bill lately, you know something is definitely shifting in the city.
Oh, absolutely. The vibe shift is just impossible to ignore right now.
It really is.
Yeah.
We have Zohran Mamdani in Gracie Mansion now. And he ran on what he very proudly called a radical progressive agenda.
He did. And the business owners we are tracking today are pointing out that he is definitely delivering on the radical part of that promise.
Right, because we are looking at a major push for a $30 per hour minimum wage by 2030. Plus, he wants to completely eliminate the tipped wage credit.
Yeah, and the reaction from the business community and our sources isn't a negotiation. It's basically an evacuation. We're seeing industry titans who survived 9/11 and COVID they're ripping up their leases.
We're talking about heavy hitters, guys like Stratus Morfogen and Richie Romero. These aren't small players.
Not at all.
And they aren't just closing up shop. They're actively taking their capital and their jobs to places like Miami, Dallas, and Nashville.
Exactly. So our mission for this deep dive is sort of look past the political slogans. We want to impartially dig into the hard economic data these owners are presenting. Why exactly are these policies threatening to leave NYC with empty storefronts?
Okay, let's get into the math. Because on the surface, hearing a $30 minimum wage sounds, well, pretty great. If I'm working the fryer, I'm thinking, sign me up.
Right. Who wouldn't want to raise?
Exactly. But we have to look at the whole ecosystem. Break down the math for us. How does that number actually land on the desk of the person signing the paychecks?
It lands like a bomb. That is really the only way the sources describe it. You have to look at the percentage jump. Right now, the minimum wage is hovering around $16.50. Mamdani's push to $30 is an 82% increase.
82%. I mean, that is massive.
In the world of economics, you almost never see an 82% cost spike in anything without a total market crash. Imagine if your rent went up 82% overnight.
I'd move immediately.
Right. You wouldn't just complain, you would pack your bags. And that is just the hourly rate. We also have to look at the fully burdened labor cost.
Which means the actual total cost to keep a human being employed, right?
Yeah.
Taxes, insurance, all of that.
Exactly. A single full-time employee right now costs a business owner about $34,000 a year. Under this new plan, that exact same employee costs over $62,000 a year.
So you are nearly doubling the cost of labor. But, people always say, if you can't afford to pay a living wage, you shouldn't be in business. Restaurants handle a lot of cash. Can't they just eat that cost?
The sources emphasize that this is the single biggest myth in the industry. People see a packed dining room on a Saturday and assume the owner is making millions. The reality is that fast casual spots run on razor-thin margins. We're talking 5 to 10% profit.
So if you do $1 million in sales, you basically only keep 50 grand.
If you are lucky. And that brings up the golden rule of hospitality. Prime cost. That's your ingredients plus your labor. If your labor goes over 30% of your total sales, you are losing money.
You're in the red every time you open the doors.
Right. So take a standard fast casual spot with 20 employees. Currently, your payroll is about $700,000 a year. Under the Mamdani plan, that payroll jumps to $1.27 million.
Wow.
That is a $500,000 hit. Small businesses simply do not have a $500,000 sitting in a drawer.
So they have to make a choice. They either close down or they pass that cost right on to the
customer. Exactly. Stratus Morfogen, who runs Brooklyn Chop House, calls this the burger index.
Burger index. I like that. Break that down for us.
He forecasts that just to survive a $30 wage, a standard $12 burger has to become a $22 burger.
$22 for a casual lunch burger. That pushes it out of the regular lunch category entirely.
It makes it a luxury item. And the sources point out a huge irony here. Mamdani campaigned on making halal $8 again. He wanted cheap eats for working folks. But the math shows you cannot mandate luxury wages and expect budget prices.
So the policy ends up pricing the exact people it was supposed to help right out of their own neighborhoods.
Yeah. Morfogen put it very bluntly. He said there won't be any more diners for $25 a person. You kill the volume model. And when you kill the volume model, you don't need as many workers. So someone gets a raise on paper, but they lose their actual job.
Which leads us perfectly into the second part of this agenda. We need to talk about the tip credit.
This is crucial.
It's a bit technical, but the new administration calls the tip credit a loophole that underpays staff. Do the industry sources agree with that?
Not at all. They argue it's a political misrepresentation. The tip credit has been the industry standard for 50 years. It lets owners pay a lower base wage, say $10 or $11, as long as the tips bring the worker up to the minimum wage, or usually well above it.
All right, it's a shared incentive.
Yeah.
The busier the restaurant is, the more money everybody makes.
Exactly. It keeps menu prices lower to bring in customers and gives the staff unlimited upside. High-performing waiters in the city aren't making minimum wage. They make $40, $50, even $60 an hour with their tips.
But if you eliminate the credit, the owner has to pay the full $30 base.
Yes. And we don't have to guess what happens next. The sources point to a case study just a few hours south, Washington, D.C.
Right, Initiative 82. They phased out the tip credit.
And it caused chaos for the industry. To survive the payroll jump, restaurants couldn't just raise menu prices by 50%. Customers would riot. So they started adding massive service fees.
Oh, I've seen those. You get the bill and there's a random 20% surcharge.
And nobody knows where it goes. Is it a tip? Does it go to the owner? And that confusion creates what economists call tip creep.
Tip creep.
Customers see the 20% fee, they get annoyed, and they just stop tipping entirely.
So the waiter gets a higher hourly wage, but their tips just disappear.
Exactly. It usually means a pay cut for the best workers. And we actually saw a version of this here in New York with delivery drivers in 2023.
The delivery app mandate. That was basically the canary in the coal mine.
It was. The city forced a high minimum wage for Uber Eats and DoorDash. And what happened? The apps simply capped the number of drivers they allowed to work.
They just locked them out.
The workforce shrank by 8% almost overnight, and for the drivers who actually kept their jobs, data showed their tips fell by 47%.
47%. Because the customer sees the higher delivery fee and thinks the driver's already getting paid.
Exactly. And the academic data backs this up. There was a study out of Albuquerque, New Mexico. They forced wages up artificially, and they found that non-compliance skyrocketed.
Meaning businesses broke the law.
Yes, they started paying people under the table just to survive. So ironically, it increased the wage gap for the most vulnerable workers.
You try to protect workers, and you end up pushing the whole system into the black market. Or, as our sources show, you push the businesses out of the state entirely. Let's talk about the Miami migration.
Right. In the past, New York owners would just grumble and adapt, but now they are physically packing up.
There was a real freeze leading up to this election, wasn't there?
Investors were just sitting on their hands waiting, but when Mamdani won, the brakes fully locked. Stratus Morfogen had 3 new venues planned, prime real estate in Midtown and the Upper East Side.
And those are serious job creators, construction servers, suppliers.
All gone. He canceled the leases. He literally said he is not signing any more leases in New York. And Richie Romero is doing the exact same thing. He halted his NYC openings and shifted to Dallas and Nashville.
Why Dallas and Nashville?
It comes down to business friction. In Dallas, the government basically asks, how can we help you open? But in New York, under this administration, the owners feel the government is just asking, how much cash can we extract from you?
And while the rest of the country's restaurant industry is growing, New York's full-service sector actually shrank by 2% early last year.
It did. And the really scary part is looking at who doesn't leave, because Morfogen and Romero are independent mom-and-pop style operators, even if they're successful ones.
Right, so who fills the void when they leave?
Only the massive corporate chains, Major Food Group, Taco Bell, McDonald's. They are the only ones who can absorb a $500,000 labor hike.
So we basically get the mallification of Manhattan.
Exactly. And the chains won't even absorb the cost long term. They will just automate it away.
Enter the robots.
Enter the kiosks. As labor gets that expensive, the return on investment for automation looks great. Industry experts predict fast casual spots will replace 20 to 30% of frontline jobs with AI ordering.
So the mayor claims to champion the worker, but the policy rolls out the red carpet for automation. You lose that human entry-level job.
Which is usually a stepping stone to management. And it gets replaced by a touchscreen. It creates a barbell economy. You have ultra-expensive fine dining for the wealthy on one end and automated fast food on the other.
And the neighborhood bistro in the middle just disappears entirely.
Gone.
But reading through these reports from the business owners, money isn't the only reason they're leaving. There's another word that keeps coming up: safety.
Yes, this is the second pillar of the crisis. You have the economic pillar and the crime pillar. And for people like Morfogen and Romero, they are tied together.
How so? Because usually, politics treats wages and crime as completely separate issues.
Well, to a business owner, they are both just risks on a spreadsheet. They view the wage hikes and the anti-police rhetoric coming from City Hall as part of the exact same ideology.
Morfogen was actually very emotional about this in his interviews.
He was. He mentioned his own family members being assaulted. He argues that the administration's attitude gives criminals confidence that they won't face consequences.
And if you run a cash business or a place that's open late, that confidence is terrifying.
It's a massive liability. And Romero pointed out the commercial vacancy rates, too. He noted, we're seeing 30 to 40% vacancy in some areas.
40% of storefronts empty, that's a ghost town.
And it creates a doom loop. Think about the psychology of a city block. A store closes because the rent and wages are too high, the window goes dark. Now there is less foot traffic on that block.
Which means the street feels emptier and less safe.
Right. And less safety invites more crime, which scares away more customers, which causes the next restaurant to close.
It's a spiral.
It is. You cannot run a thriving hospitality industry if people are afraid to walk from the subway station to the restaurant. It does not matter how good your $22 burger is.
It really paints a sobering picture. The sources make it sound like a controlled demolition of the city's economy.
They feel it's policy over reality. The argument is that the administration is operating on a theory of how the world should work rather than how the math actually works.
They treat businesses like piggy banks that can just be shaken forever.
But the money has to come from somewhere. And right now, the money is voting with its feet. It's moving down south.
And the ultimate victims aren't the wealthy owners. They will be fine in West Palm Beach.
No, the victims are the delivery driver whose tips got cut in half, the line cook whose job got replaced by a screen, and the working-class family who can't afford to go out for dinner anymore.
So let's recap the scoreboard based on what these sources are telling us. We've got a $30 minimum wage that mathematically forces prices up.
Right.
We have the end of the tip credit, which actually lowers take-home pay for the best staff. We have a crime problem fueled by empty storefronts. And the tax base is packing up and leaving.
That is the exact recipe for disaster they are warning about. And it begs a really serious question for the future of the city.
Which is?
If the city becomes too expensive for small businesses to open and too dangerous for customers to visit, who exactly is left to pay the taxes that fund the mayor's programs?
That is a fascinating question to think about. If all the capital leaves, the math eventually runs out.
The math always wins in the end.
It really does. Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive.